God, 2021 was a disaster of a year, wasn't it? We were still in the middle of this damn pandemic. I swear Twitter has been getting more toxic over the past few months, and cryptocurrency has officially made everybody hate monkeys, for good reason. Now, what about the animated films? Well, there's certainly been more than last year's, that's for sure. 14 as opposed to a measly 8, so this time I won't be throwing in random animated movies to keep the month afloat. Thankfully, most of these movies came out in theaters, albeit to modest box office records for obvious reasons. And much like last year, I'll also review a few animated movies that were supposed to be in theaters but were dumped onto streaming services instead. So no, I won't be reviewing movies like Arlo the Alligator Boy or Hilda and the Mountain King. Maybe someday, but not now. Plus this time I'll be doing by popular vote month right after. Instead of leaving it for May, we're gonna do it right after. Now, as many of you know, this month is going to be the last for Animation Explosion in general. Truth be told, I'm not happy with this format anymore, and I simply become burnt out from being forced to review every single theatrical animated movie every year. It takes time away from wanting to make more Let's Tackle or Sticks videos. Now, believe it or not, this does not mean I'm done making reviews on new animated movies. What I've decided to do is migrate that review formula over to Quick Tackle and simply do short reviews of new animated movies as they come out. Now, this doesn't mean I'll be reviewing every movie that comes out from here on out, but I'll still be doing these reviews, just not all of them. But you guys clicked here to witness the beginning of the final month, so I'm ready to go out with the biggest bang as I possibly can. Sit back and get ready, everyone, as we begin the 5th and final month for Animation Explosion. It's funny how last year we started with a Pixar movie and this year it's a Disney movie, Raya and the Last Dragon, and I'm shamelessly admitting I used to pronounce it Raya, sorry. It wasn't exactly a movie I was eager to check out during release. I know, as someone who frequently gets excited for Disney animation movies is odd, but after their recent output I was going to keep my expectations fairly low. Not to mention the reception seems similar to Frozen 2, except whereas that movie had a more negative reaction partially due to what it's named after, Raya had a more mixed reaction. Some people I know either hate it or love it. As for me, sorry to say, but I sit in the camp that think it's bad. Really, really bad. And yes, I do think it's worse than both Frozen 2 and even Ralph Breaks the Internet. It takes a lot of guts to do that. Eons ago, evil spirits that turn people into stones were stopped by a dragon that harnesses her powers into a gem. But there's 5 different tribes who want the gem for themselves. Yeah, I'm not the only one who noticed it either. The Heart tribe, however, is in possession of the gem, and the chief's daughter Raya is trained to protect it. But the chief attempts to make peace with the other tribes, leading to Raya becoming friends with Namari, the daughter of the Fang tribe's chief. But when Raya decides to show her the gem, Namari backstabs Raya, and each of the tribes steal a gem piece, resulting in the spirits emerging and putting the world at peril once again. Raya eventually finds the dragon who restored the world, Sisu, and together they go off to find the other gem pieces and restore the world once again. Okay, so right off the bat, the technical side of this movie is pretty damn good. The soundtrack by James Newton Howard is a total banger, and it's a shame Disney doesn't hire him as much to do their scores, because when he makes some good music, he makes some damn good music. The animation is once again top notch for this studio, and the voice cast for the most part was pretty solid. I thought all of them were doing a great job, except for Awkwafina as Sisu. I don't think she's a bad actress, but her voice got on my nerves really quickly throughout the movie. That's not really her fault, it's just the poor direction and poor casting from Disney that made her a pain to deal with. The character herself is really annoying, trying way too hard to be funny and or zany like the genie, without the charm that made Genie so good in the first place. And yeah, I may as well get that out of the way. The characters range from decent to absolutely horrible. The only characters I found myself liking were the 3 ship members, the Shrimp Kid, the Tough Chief, and the Ninja Baby. They were great. Our main protagonist Raya is supposed to be the wounded strong girl who keeps to her guts and learns not to trust anyone ever again, and in concept that's not a bad idea for your protagonist. She was partially responsible for why the world is in such peril, so she has to maintain independence. But then it doesn't make much sense as to how easily she trusts the aforementioned crew members. They turn out to be good people at heart, but Raya didn't know that because she hardly knows them. Which segues us into what's easily the movie's biggest and most infuriating aspect of all, the message. Which is critical into how much you enjoy a movie or not, because if it's done improperly, it can lead to emotions I never thought I'd have. Okay, so we all know that the world is in peril because Raya put too much trust in someone, and I imagine how weird it was that she was easily trusting of other crew members. Why do I bring this up? Because the movie, in both areas, wants to reinforce the lesson of trust in order for Raya to restore restore the world back to normal, both accepting new people for themselves and trusting Namari to give her the final gem piece. Except the movie botches it up so badly that it actually infuriates me. First off, the movie never shuts up about forcing Raya to learn to trust, instead of letting the audience catch on for themselves. Show Don't Tell was clearly not this movie's cup of tea. But more importantly, trusting someone was the reason the world ended up in peril. Raya put too much trust in someone that betrayed her, and now the movie says she needs to do it again? What the actual fuck? The movie obviously doesn't understand the spectrum of trust, and instead blindly tells its audience you should trust anyone you meet. If it were more so a lesson about learning to trust rather than doing it right away, that would have worked better. Except the movie hardly has enough time to do that because it's always jumping from one plot point to another. The pacing is so bad that it butchers the message. And Sisu's excuse for why her point is right there is because her family trusted her to restore the world initially. That makes no sense. They were her family. Of course they'd fucking trust her. None of them know that much about Namari, and throughout the movie she shows no signs of being a better person. She's constantly antagonizing Raya even after ruining her life, and at one point threatens to burn down a village. Yeah, it was empty, but she didn't know that. It doesn't matter if the movie wants to make it seem like she doesn't want to hurt people. That doesn't translate to doing the exact same thing anyway. And the cherry on top of this already demented sundae is towards the end of the movie when Namari ends up killing Sisu after Raya tried to stop her from shooting. The movie wants to make it seem like Raya was partially to blame for causing Sisu's death because she refused to trust Namari. Really? She's going to try and guilt trip Raya for doing what she thought was right? Namari has not done a single decent thing throughout the movie and didn't consider putting her crossbow down if she said she didn't want to hurt Sisu. How is this partially Raya's fault? And yes, I know the reason she does this is so her tribe can take all the credit for restoring the world back to normal, but they'd still get that credit if they found out they gave the last piece to Raya. It makes even doubly less sense later when Raya's the first one to give a piece to Namari and trusts her to save the world. That is the worst possible way they could have gone with this moral, because like I said earlier, Namari has not done a single decent thing throughout the movie and Raya still tries to trust her? What the fuck is everyone's problem? And yes, of course she restores the world back to normal, but what other choice did she have? Being frozen to death forever? No shit she wanted to prevent that. She doesn't even bother apologizing to Raya or Sisu for anything, or even admit the error of her ways in any point. Not like when Encanto had Alma admit her faults and take full responsibility for what she did to her family, and there's never a compromise to make it all better. The movie hardly had any time to flesh these aspects out because it was too preoccupied rushing itself along to deliver a quote-unquote powerful message. I'm sorry, I normally don't try to get angry at animated movies for kids. I mean, for as much as I hated Buck Wild, I still tried to keep my composure. But I have to draw the line somewhere when a movie delivers such an irresponsible, borderline toxic message piled on top of a generic and boring as hell movie with awful pacing and horrendous dialogue. I honestly think Raya and the Last Dragon might have worked better if it was a TV show. Part of the reason Avatar was so good was because it had 3 seasons worth of storytelling and gave it plenty of time to flesh these things out. All of these issues could have been avoided if Raya had the same luxury. But as a movie, it's all sidelined for a story about trust and focused on characters that the movie's trying to sell. I like some of the characters and the music, but everything else is something I don't want to deal with ever again. And I don't trust myself to give in to that for as long as I live.